Keeps saying it's going live, but I don't know if it's live. Let me check. Good morning, everyone. Looks like we are live now, I hope. Maybe we're not. Can you hear us? Good morning. Hello, Ella. Hello, Jens, Bradley, Ethan, Jenny, and Edward. Good to see you all online. Is the live stream working this morning? If someone can say yes or no, that would be very helpful. Yes, they can hear us. Okay, great. Thank you. And Gita, welcome to everyone. And good morning, Bante. So this is the fourth day. Great, of the retreat. Bye when you have fun. So Bante will be sharing some words of Dhamma this morning on the subject of impermanence. So I'll pass it on to Bante.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddha dhammang sanghang namasami. So first off, on the subject of impermanence, it was supposed to be Ayasoma giving the talk this morning. But just a few minutes ago, she decided that also was impermanent. So instead, you're getting me again. So sorry about that. She claims that she's going to give a talk this evening, but we'll see if that turns out to be impermanent as well. So stay tuned. So once again, we've been practicing with cultivating samadhi. So developing a strong, stable, sharply alert and peaceful mind as a foundation for recognizing the insubstantial nature of every aspect of our experience. And that's really all there is to it. It's really not a complicated method. It's relatively straightforward. What makes it difficult is simply our overwhelming flood of bad mental habits. What makes it difficult is just that we're so filled with impulses and tendencies towards desire, aversion, and delusion that we find it quite difficult to engage in this relatively simple exercise. So one of the most critical qualities to develop is persistence. Persistence. Keep trying over and over and over again. Don't give up. And when you do give up, because you will sometimes, when you do give up, as soon as you can, recommit. Start again. Just keep starting again, starting again, starting again. So a year or 2 years ago, I went to a Goenka retreat, and the most useful thing that he says is start again. So he's constantly saying, start again, start again, start again. So that's something that we really need to remind ourselves. Just keep starting over, starting again. Whenever we notice that we veered off the track of samadhi and impermanence, well, you just put your mind back on track. With gentleness, with self-forgiveness, recognizing that our mind is this chaotic morass of bad habits. So naturally, it's going to be difficult to keep our mind on the meditation. Naturally, we're going to lose the thread a lot. Naturally, we're going to space out or get distracted or restless or confused. Naturally, that's going to happen a lot. So when it happens, don't get surprised, don't get upset, don't get angry at yourself or at the outside world, don't get disappointed. Just forgive yourself and immediately put your mind back on the meditation. It's just like, oh yeah, of course I screwed up again. That's been my habit for longer than I can possibly remember. But that's what I'm trying to change. So back on the meditation. Just come back over and over and over again. And in truth, you've never left. So we talk about come back to the meditation, but it's always right here. Your body is always right here. Your mind is always right here. And impermanence is always right here. So it's not about coming back. It's about recognizing that you never left. You don't need to bring your mind back to the body. You just need to recognize that your mind never left your body. You don't need to bring your attention back to impermanence. You just need to recognize that you never left impermanence. Even those times when you're spacing out, well, that's just more impermanence. It's recognizing that attention is also impermanent. Samadhi is impermanent. Wisdom is impermanent. You can have moments where you're seeing things clearly, well, semi-clearly, relatively clearly, and then it goes away. And the mind is back to its hazy, foggy dullness. And it's like, well, what's going on? Well, guess what? Everything's impermanent. Moments of clarity are also impermanent. Which is why we need to keep training our mind. We need to keep training our mind to be sharp and bright and clear. We need to keep training our mind to see impermanence, to feel impermanence, to recognize the all-pervasiveness of impermanence. And as we engage in this kind of practice, as we keep resolutely, persistently practicing, it's necessary to have patience, to be patient. Don't expect to get dramatic results quickly. You might, but probably not. Probably won't, but you might. Some people do, but you probably won't. So be patient. Results will come in time, whenever it's right. Don't be rushing to get into jhana. Be patient. It will happen whenever it happens. Don't be rushing to try to force your mind to be quiet. Just stop making it noisy and be patient, and the mind will become quiet on its own. Don't be rushing to try to directly perceive the impermanence of all things. Just keep pointing the mind towards it and be patient. And slowly, 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 the illusion of permanence will start to melt away, will start to dissolve. But be patient. If we're impatient, if we're trying to rush to get spectacular results, then that will just agitate the mind. It'll just stir up the mind, creating more confusion, more turmoil, more distress. So it's actually counterproductive to be impatient. So we want to be persistent, but also patient. So these qualities work together. They balance each other out. They support each other. Persistent and patient. Another element of our practice is endurance. So enduring whatever comes. And enduring, once again, is something that's done with patience and acceptance. So this doesn't mean endure in the sense of like, oh, I really hate this, but I will endure. I will put up with it until it stops. That's not what we mean by enduring. It's not what we mean by endurance. Endurance, rather, is recognizing this is what's going on, and I choose not to be upset about it. This is what's happening, and I choose not to be bothered. This is what's happening, and I will be with it for as long as it lasts. And as long as it's here, I will not generate unwholesome mind states about it. So patiently enduring whatever comes up. So patiently enduring heat, cold, pain, itchiness, boredom, distraction, confusion, sleepiness. Patiently enduring. And while it's present, don't be bothered. When it's gone, don't get excited. Just recognizing this is what it's like right now. And also recognizing that it's constantly changing. States of mind are constantly changing. Qualities of mind are constantly changing. Objects of mind are constantly changing. And that's perfectly okay. Because as long as we recognize that's what's happening, then we're practicing the recognition of impermanence. So even when the mind is an utter chaotic, disastrous mess, if you can clearly recognize the impermanence of the mind, clearly recognize that that whole chaotic, disastrous mess is constantly changing, then you're practicing the recognition of impermanence. Now, your samadhi is not very good, maybe, but you can still recognize the impermanence of all those things. And actually, as you recognize impermanence, if you recognize that constant change, that transience and insubstantiality of all this mental chaos and noise, then you'll also find that it recedes into the distance a little bit. It starts to fade. It loses its importance. And as it loses its importance, then the mind starts to collect together and unify into samadhi. And as the mind unifies into samadhi, then the noise will disappear completely, will vanish entirely. And then you'll gather the clarity of mind necessary in order to perceive impermanence on a more subtle level, in order to feel it more deeply. And work on letting go. As we practice the perception of impermanence, you'll notice that there's parts of our experience that we don't want to let go of. Body sensations, body perceptions, ways that we perceive our body, uh, attitudes of mind, how the mind feels from moment to moment, objects of mind, thoughts and emotions, ways of relating to the world, things that we don't want to let go of, things that we want to cling to. But you can only cling to things that are permanent. You can only cling to things that are solid. You can only cling to things that have ongoing existence. But absolutely nothing has ongoing existence. So we need to be willing to let go of the things that we're trying to hold on to. Because what we're holding on to is nothing real. It's a phantasm, it's a concept. It's something which only exists as an idea. Our actual experience is that whatever we thought was real a moment ago has changed. It's gone. There's something else, or maybe nothing else in its place. So, cultivating this willingness to let go of body and mind, dropping off body and mind, moment by moment. The willingness to allow every single aspect of our body and mind to come to an end without the slightest twinge of regret, without the slightest twinge of disappointment, without the slightest twinge of longing. The willingness to allow it to disappear, the willingness to allow it to come to an end. That doesn't mean wanting to to force the body to come to an end. Doesn't mean trying to force the mind to disappear. That's not the point. That's just aversion. That's just another form of desire. But rather, it's the willingness. If the body disappears, that's fine. If all mental activity stops, that's fine. If consciousness itself ceases for a moment, that's fine. It's okay. There's absolutely nothing wrong with these things. So with that attitude, then one can open up to this free-flowing experience. This free-flowing experience which gets caught on nothing, which is impeded by nothing, which is hung up on nothing. Again, it's like being in a river. The river is flowing. And whether the river is flowing fast or slow, if there's no solid obstacles in the waterway, then you're safe. You'll just be carried along by the current and you won't have any problems. But if the river is full of solid objects, then as you get swept along by the current, then you'll constantly be getting battered against those objects, slamming into rocks and trees and stones and whatever else is in the river. And you can get quite badly injured, quite badly hurt that way. But as long as the waterway is clear of solid objects, then you'll just flow along. Even if the river is flowing extremely fast, it won't be a problem because there's nothing for you to strike against. Well, it's the same with our experience. We're in this river of impermanence, this river of constant change, where moment by moment, everything we experience is swept away and replaced with something else. But that's not a problem as long as we're not manifesting the appearance of anything solid or stable or ongoing in that river. As long as we're willing to allow everything in that river of experience to disappear, to change, to flow on moment by moment, then we'll just flow with it. Smoothly, effortlessly, safely, calmly, peacefully, without any problem whatsoever. So being willing to let go of every body sensation, being willing to let go of every mental experience, being willing to let go of every viewpoint, every opinion. And relaxing into it, relaxing into the recognition of impermanence. And you'll find that in the midst of that constant change, there's an incredible peacefulness. The peacefulness of non-resistance. So I don't really have a whole lot to say this morning, since it was Ayasoma's turn to speak. She was the one who was supposed to be giving the talk, and once again, she pulled out at the last minute.
True.
And now she's objecting as she likes to object. But what can I say? She's the abbess. We do whatever she says. Not without protest, but nonetheless, we do what she says because she protests longest and loudest, which means she always gets her way. Maya's laughing because she knows it's true. But I think I'll go ahead and end at that point. If you have any questions, please go ahead and write in your questions, and Ayasoma will tell me to answer them. So please go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you, Bante, for throwing me under the bus. And thank you for joining us this morning. So if you have any questions for Bante, feel free to put them in the chat, and I will politely ask him to answer them. And good to see you, Ethan, and Jens and Marielle, Stacy, Boone. Oh, welcome. So there's no questions as of now. There are some hilarious emojis. There is Patty who is sharing, this is what I needed to hear. I'm struggling with a relationship that ended abruptly. Dealing with the loss of it is difficult. All right. And
well, if there's no questions, then we can move on to continuing our meditation practice. So again, doing walking meditation and sitting meditation on your own until 11 o'clock. And then this afternoon, question?
Yes. Sally is asking, Bante, when we observe the anicca of the body, my mind moves along with the changing of the body. I felt restless.
What do you mean by your mind moves along with the changing of the body?
So, Sally, if you can elaborate on that, that would be great.
Mm.
And in the meanwhile, we can ask Bradley. Bradley asks, not Bradley is the question. Bradley asks, I often get impatient with being patient when it comes to my own practice. Like I'm in a hurry to become enlightened. Any tips?
Yeah, recognize that impatience is slowing you down. If you want to hurry as quickly as possible, then be patient with your practice. Again, you be persistent, so you keep applying the methods, following the path moment by moment, persistently, without failing, without stopping. But don't expect anything to happen. Don't expect to get any results. And just keep patiently doing the practice. So you practice for its own sake, and the results will come whenever they come. So this is actually the fastest way. And if you get impatient, that actually slows you down. It's counterproductive.
And thank you, Bante. Jans is asking, currently at times I feel frustration or expectation. My meditation should be a certain way. Do I just watch this feeling arise and fade, or just return to my meditation object and focus on that?
So it's important to recognize that your meditation is exactly where it is. So your meditation, as it currently is a manifestation of the causes that you've created in the past. So your current conditions are the results of your past choices. So that means you are exactly where you should be. You couldn't possibly be anywhere else in your practice. So there's nothing wrong. You just keep practicing. Keep moving forward. Again, you just keep creating the causes for wholesome mind states, and those mind states will get stronger. Keep creating the causes for samadhi, and your samadhi will grow stronger. So you can set aside these thoughts about where you think your meditation should be or what you think your meditation should be like, because your meditation is exactly what it should be. Because this is the conditions you've made for yourself. If you want better conditions, well then make the choices that lead to better conditions, which is presumably what you're doing since you're practicing, continuing to practice. You're creating the conditions to have better meditation in the future. That's good. So keep at it. Keep creating the conditions, building the foundation. And what you'll find is that one day, maybe tomorrow, maybe today, maybe next year, who knows? One day, you'll sit down to meditate, and you'll notice that your mind is rock solid. Your samadhi is very strong and stable and clear. The mind is very awake and alert. And you'll be like, oh, where did this come from? Well, it came from all those years of persistent practice. That's what it came from. And one day, that all built up and came through. But that comes from all those difficult times, all those difficult meditation periods where you sit down to meditate and the mind is scattered and distracted and restless and dull and hazy and all over the place. But you keep persistently trying to practice anyway. Well, that's creating the conditions for those bright, stable, peaceful meditations in the future. So you can also see when you are having a difficult time, when you are struggling in your meditation, you can recognize this struggle is creating the conditions for stable, peaceful meditation in the future. Okay?
And Rich, our neighbor Rich, is asking, when you say not to attach to opinion or judgment, etc., I agree. I'm finding great peace in non-attachment, but my spouse is greatly disturbed by my not engaging in battle. I remain stable and allow for opinion. Many of the opinions are concerning my practice in Buddhism. I don't defend, I don't attack, I guess. I just appreciate her opinion and accept her faith and her religion. But sometimes people love to fight. Is it okay for a Buddhist to choose to walk away and no longer engage?
Yeah, but to be perfectly honest, what I'm willing to bet is happening, and I'm not sure because I don't know your spouse, uh, but I suspect she's trying to connect with you. And especially if in the past you were more argumentative, then uh, mm, they might have built up this association of like, well, one way where I know we can relate with each other is through argument. So then when you change and you're no longer engaging in argument, then that can create this feeling of loss, of like, oh, I've lost one of the ways that I can connect with my partner, lost one of the ways that I can relate. So sometimes people so strongly want to make a connection that they'll even make a connection in an unpleasant way rather than not make a connection at all. So when she does seem to be trying to engage you in argument, rather than just walk away, see if you can find another way to connect with her that's gentle, that's loving, that's caring, that's peaceful. Give her a hug, ask her how she's feeling, make her a cup of tea, sit down with her, ask her what's going on with her. Be open, be caring. Try to connect with the underlying attitude, the connection seeking attitude in her mind, rather than with the content of the argument. Because it's very possible that it's not the content of the argument that's important to her, but rather the sense of connection with you. I might be totally wrong here, but this is something that you might consider exploring.
Great, thank you, Bante. Rich is saying yes. So I think you might have nailed it. Says, I feel that deeply. Okay, great. And Boone, the topic today is the topic of the entire retreat. So, in contemplating impermanence. So, it will be always this topic until Wednesday. And then after Wednesday, would always be this topic too, mixed with other central topics of the Buddhist path. And Sally is giving a little bit more context on her question from before. So the obvious part of the body sensation is changing. For example, this second, the practicals of shoulder, next second, legs appears, passes away. The practicals on surface of body jumping at different places. Even I tried to feel the whole body as one object, but I still felt different parts of body sensations changing. Mind is not peaceful. I was scattered, restless. I realized I had aversion towards the restless mind last night during Bante's talk this morning. When an aversion arises in mind, how to recognize them immediately. Any tools? Mind free as flowing river.
Well, first off, it sounds to me like you might need to spend more time on samadhi. So I'd recommend that you spend more time stabilizing the mind in this clear, sharp, steady awareness of the body. And try to feel the whole body as a single object. Try to stay with that just as a samadhi practice for a long time. It might be that you're trying to move into the recognition of impermanence before you're really ready for it, before your samadhi is strong enough to do it effectively. Because yeah, if your samadhi is not strong, then sometimes the recognition of impermanence can just bring up agitation. That can happen. Yeah. So really work on your samadhi practice. Just really try to focus on feeling your body with intensity and clarity and unmoving attention, not moving the mind through the body at all. This is another reason why I often recommend starting with a smaller area rather than the whole body, is because it's often easier to hold the mind steady in a small area rather than a large area. Uh, and also why I recommend starting with a small area, and even when you switch to recognizing impermanence, to first look for it in a small area, that same area that you've been practicing samadhi. And once it's well established in that area, then you can let it expand to fill the whole body. But another way of practicing is that you start with samadhi, feeling the whole body. And once that's solidly established, firmly, clearly established in the mind, then you recognize impermanence of the whole body. But that depends upon that stable, steady, clear samadhi. So if you notice that the mind is bouncing around and getting agitated and restless and distracted while you're doing impermanence, then come back to samadhi. Stay with samadhi for a while. Maybe stay with samadhi for a few hours, or a few days even. It's one of the odd things about like the prevalence of 7-day and 10-day retreats. And it's really not long enough. It's not long enough. You can practice only samadhi for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And your mind will still be a little bit scattered. But yeah, you practice for at least a couple of weeks, samadhi for a couple of weeks, and then the mind is steady-ish. So in a course of a 7-day retreat, well, there's just not time to spend 2 weeks only on samadhi. So instead, I recommend spending the first 2 days on samadhi, but that's probably not enough. So maybe spend today just doing samadhi practice. And then tomorrow, maybe you can do a little bit with impermanence. But spend more time on samadhi. And you'll probably find that this problem clears up on its own. Anything else?
Right. Yes, Boon has a question. Bhante, can you explain dukkha dukkha, viparinama dukkha, and sankhara dukkha? So when we meditate to understand impermanence, meaning we want to understand sukha. Also, he says, sorry, my question above is to understand dukkha, not sukha.
So the contemplation of dukkha is not the recognition of impermanence. That's a different set of meditation methods. So, I mean, your question is a good one, but it's not related to the theme of this retreat. So I would ask that you save it for Wednesday and ask it after the retreat is over. Jen, you have a question?
So I'm still struggling with bodily pain, and it's just there and it's getting stronger. I just don't know how to perceive it as impermanent. Do I just be with it?
Yeah, just stay with it.
So don't bother with impermanence.
Well, I mean, it's totally obviously impermanent. And at some point, you will recognize that it's been changing all along. Is it there right now?
No.
See, it's impermanent. That was easy.
I guess.
Okay. Any other questions?
Doesn't look like it for now. So we can proceed with the meditation practice.
Yeah, so practice on your own from now until 11. Then at 11, you can take a break. And by break, I mean work. So you can do a little bit of house cleaning. You can make yourself a nice lunch. And while you're doing that, try to keep mindfulness of the body. Keeping this clear, peaceful awareness of your body as you go throughout these activities. Keep the mind silent. You don't need to do much thinking during a retreat. You don't really need to think about much of anything, in fact. Then in the afternoon, continue walking meditation, sitting meditation. You can take a break at 5. Continue practicing again at 6 o'clock. And then at 7:30, in theory, Ayasoma will be leading the evening session. This is assuming she doesn't change her mind at 7:20, which, I mean, is quite possible. You never know. But in theory, Ayasoma will be leading the session this evening. So we'll see you again at 7:30.
Actually, there are a few questions for you before we go.
Oh, okay.
And so Marielle is asking, when we practice on our own, can we read Buddhist books besides walking and sitting meditation? I think we had agreed already on that. That it was okay this time around.
I mean, it's okay, but keep it to a minimum. Don't go overboard. If you're just spending your whole day sitting around reading books, you will die confused without having attained awakening. So that's not recommended, just to be clear. But reading a little bit of Dharma can help to remind you of what you're doing. It can help to give you inspiration and direction in your practice. But do it in moderation, because you don't want to stir up your mind unnecessarily. You don't want to make your mind noisier. And really take the opportunity to cultivate samadhi and to perceive impermanence on a deep level. It's good to read Dharma books, especially suttas. It's very important to read suttas. But there are also times when you need to just put the books down and just focus on your meditation practice. So you can read a little bit, but not too much. I highly recommend reading books by monastics, by the way. Yeah, not too much though.
Right, and Sally is saying, in one sitting, I did develop sati for 1 hour and feel peaceful, and once switched to recognize anicca, mind lost its peace. I see that's still enough. Because last night in guided meditation, I felt so good to feel the whole body and a little emptiness feeling. But right now, still should come back to single object. Can we use Goenka's method of scanning the body?
So the Goenka body scanning method, which by the way was not invented by Goenka, it's been around for a long time. So the body scanning method, its main value is it helps to clarify blind spots in the body, areas which we're not paying enough attention to. It helps to illuminate places where our mindfulness is weak. So that can be useful. So sometimes I'll speak about at the very start of a meditation to briefly, just for a couple minutes, to scan through the body, head to toe to head, a couple of times, just for like 2-3 minutes, right at the start of a meditation. But then to stop the body scanning and just hold the mind still in the body, because this will get you good samadhi. Holding the mind still. If you want good samadhi, body and mind must be completely still. Otherwise, your samadhi will never get strong. You can get like some kind of weak, feeble samadhi with a moving mind, but it's not going to be very much. Strong samadhi requires a still body and a still mind. So I don't really recommend body scanning as a samadhi method. But yeah, if you've had some tastes of peaceful meditation, of clear meditation, that's great. But if that's not what you're experiencing right now, then that means you need to work on your samadhi some more. So just accept that. Work on your samadhi. There's nothing wrong with building up your samadhi. Some people are worried that they're spending too much time on samadhi practice, but realistically, most people, that's not their problem. Most people, their problem is that they're spending way too little time on samadhi. Keep building up that samadhi power. I think it's perfectly fine if for the 7-day retreat you spend 6.5 days just doing samadhi. That's totally fine. So don't worry about it. Just keep working on your samadhi, and when your mind feels rock solid, completely steady and bright and clear, then turn attention to impermanence. And if you fall into restlessness again, just go back to samadhi. It's okay. Okay?
And Sally is saying also, when I just trained sati today, for example, the heat inside the abdomen is changing. Should I observe it's changing or not for samadhi training?
If you're doing samadhi, then you're just holding your mind steady. So not making any special effort to recognize impermanence. But it's there. Impermanence is always here. It's never anywhere else. It's always here. So it's always accessible. This is part of why it goes so well with samadhi practice. It's because you can flip. You can switch to impermanence at snap of the fingers at any time. But when you're doing samadhi, you're just trying to hold the mind still. That's all. Anything else?
Yes, so we have two more questions. Bon is asking, when meditating on impermanence, the experience we get is to consider Chintamaya Panya?
No. Bhavanamaya Panya. Recognition of impermanence is a direct feeling, a direct experience. So it's not Chintamaya Panya. Chintamaya Panya would be like as you're sitting there thinking about what I'm saying. That's Chintamaya Panya. But when you're meditating on impermanence, you're trying to feel it directly, to feel the insubstantial, constantly changing, ghostly, mirage-like aspect of your experience. So it's a direct feeling, a direct sensation, direct experience. Therefore, it's Bhavanamaya Panya, the wisdom that comes through direct experience.
And Yanni is asking, when we hold the body still, then I observe my breath for samadhi purposes. Is that correct?
That's fine, as long as you're holding your attention still on a certain part of the body or on the whole body all at once. So it's fine to observe breath as long as you hold the mind still in a certain area where you're observing the sensations.
And Boon has his last question. Bhante, when we get samadhi, you say to turn impermanence. You say to turn to impermanence.
Mm.
But what is this object of impermanence?
Well, it starts with recognizing that your samadhi object is constantly changing. That's how it starts. Okay.
Sally is also saying, so I try stillness these days, but during guided meditation, I might experience a little contemplating on anicca, okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no problem.
All right, so I think that's all for this morning. Thank you so much, Bhante, for sharing the Dhamma with us. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And thank you all for practicing together with us. So we will check in again at 7:30 p.m. and practice together then. All right, have a great